What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Open Great League with the 3 Hisui starters, which across the past 2 seasons have all received a buff, with Decidueye on Aura Sphere, Samurott on Fury Cutter, and Typhlosion on Ember. Now a few seasons ago I tried to run this team together and I got absolutely smoked, so bad that I don't think those battles ever even made it into a video, but this season this trio is so much more usable. Of course, it's still a theme team, meaning it's hard to cover for every single Pokemon in the meta, but I still had a really fun time using it. So with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. Which region do you think now has the strongest starter trio from a GBL perspective? And aside from Galar, which region has the weakest trio? Let me know in the comment section down below. And with that being said, let's get into the battles now. I'm starting into the first battle, leading Decidueye into Carbink. So of course, this is definitely where we want to see it for this team. We're going to be weak to the Fairy typing, but the Rock typing is resisted. The opponent safe swaps into Clodsire, maybe looking to catch a resisted Charge or maybe a neutral Trailblaze. But either way, we're going to swap. Shield the first move here. Unfortunately, swapping out slightly too slow to get off the Icy Wind first. But we can now fire off an Icy Wind. And actually, I'm going to outpace them to the next Charge move as well. So we can double debuff them here, which means even though Icy Wind won't quite get the KO, I can now comfortably tank an Earthquake. So I'm going to no-shield this. The opponent is going to swap back into Carbink. So I'm not going to allow them to farm me down there. Instead, we're going to come in with the Decidueye, fire off one Trailblaze, fire off a second Trailblaze before they can reach a Moonblast. They're going to no-shield once again, saving both their shields for their final Pokemon. But at this point, I'm double boosted. I can now go for a very aggressive Psycho Cut farm down, coming out with a ton of energy. And let's see what they come in with. The opponent's thinking about what to do. They come in with a Corviknight. So of course, Corviknight gonna hit for double super effective damage with an Air Cutter. That will easily get the one shot from this range up against my Decidueye, but we're so loaded. Aura Spheres grab both shields from the opponent. At this point, I might as well just force him to throw. The opponent does overfarm just a little bit there. Air Cutter also gonna get the boost, which means a single payback will easily take out my Typhlosion. So I do have to be wary of that. I'm gonna swap out there, and I'm actually able to make the catch. But did they full send? They did. They full sent the payback, and now we've got to watch out for a catch attempt from the opponent. I'm able to hold on to the energy. We've got back-to-back wild charges, but actually just a single wild charge will get the KO up against Corviknight, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into the next battle. We're going to see a great lead matchup for us. We are seeing Lickitung in the lead. So, of course, Body Slam and Licks, they're going to hit for neutral damage here, but we can go for an Aura Sphere and hit for very big damage. The opponent actually swaps out, though, into a Dusknoir, and unfortunately, once again, just slightly slow on the swap there. They're able to outpace me, and they bait with a Shadow Punch, which is certainly not ideal for me. I'm now going to bait in turn with the Icy Wind. Icy Wind is going to be shielded, unfortunately, fortunately by the opponent there. If they no-shield that, it doesn't really do much damage. They now fire off the Dynamic Punch, and likewise, I'm also going to full send the Dark Pulse here, expecting maybe the opponent will call a bait, but no, the opponent is going to double shield there, and I'm only able to reach an Icy Wind before they can reach another Dynamic Punch. So of course, at this point, the opponent is going to overfarm just slightly, fire off the charge move, Dynamic Punch gets the KO from that range, but we can come back in with the Decidueye. We do have a lot of energy, so I'm going to farm up to back-to-back charge moves before firing off the Trailblaze. Trailblaze gets the KO there. They come in with a Peck Togekiss, so I have to swap out straight away. And unfortunately, well, for most Ghost types, this would be a bad matchup for me, but I can resist all of the charge moves from the Lickitung, whether on Wrap or if they're on Hyper Beam or Power Whip. Doesn't really matter too much. Obviously, we've seen Body Slam already, but now we can fire off a Fire Punch, and Fire Punch doesn't get the KO, but it puts them into perfect farm down range, coming out with the Wild Charge loaded, and Wild Charge, super effective. It takes out the Togekiss from nearly full health, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You see a Wigglytuff in the lead. So, of course, this is not good. It's a huge core breaker to the team. However, because Charm does less damage this season, if they commit to a full Charm farm down, Decidueye looks like it's going to reach back-to-back Aura Spheres, which is huge for me. I can actually grab a shield advantage up against a Charm user, which is very nice for me. At this point, we're, of course, going to come in with Typhlosion, going to resist everything they can throw here. The opponent going to go for the Icy Wind, not going to do too much damage. However, these Embers already aren't doing much damage, and now that we're debuffed, I probably can't commit to a full farm down. So instead, I'm going to overfarm just a little bit there, fire off a Fire Punch. Fire Punch from this range gets the KO there. Excuse me, and they're going to come in with a Kanto Marowak. So this point, of course, I'm going to use my shield as now I can go for an Icy Wind. Look to debuff their attack there before they do fire off a second charge move. Icy Wind, going to be no shielded. They then swap out straight away into a Fearow. So here, we're going to throw on good timing here, and we are going to go for another Icy Wind. Icy Wind is going to grab that final shield. And at this point, what I need to do is swap back into my Typhlosion and get off the Wild Charge. We are one away. We're able to win CMP with Typhlosion. Typhlosion, Wild Charge, once again, gets the one shot. But it's a race now, and the opponent outpacing me by a single turn. Getting to the Bone Club there. Bone Club gets the KO, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see a Shadow Kanto Marowak in the lead this time around, so much better to see it here, of course. Gonna resist everything they can throw once again, so great for me. I'm gonna fire off the Trailblaze. Trailblaze gonna be shielded by the opponent. And now, of course, the next Trailblaze is gonna do even more damage. The opponent is gonna fire off a Rock Slide there, probably expecting that to be neutral, but that is not the case. We can now go for a boosted Trailblaze, getting the KO there. And the opponent's gonna come in with a Shadow Blastoise, but they do very smartly snipe with the Togekiss there. Very smart play on the opponent's end. Maybe making me think that I can overfarm a bit with a Decidueye. Then sniping, I just didn't react in time. But luckily for me, the opponent is on Dazzling Gleam and Aura Sphere, it looks like. So now I can farm up to back-to-back Wild Charges. First one grabs the final shield, and we've seen this already in the video. Wild Charge gets the KO there. We can now come in with the Samurott. And honestly, even if they are on what's the word? Skull Bash. I don't really care. I'm going to no shield anyways. Save my shield for the Typhlosion, but actually, it's just an Ice Beam. Don't really know why they went for Ice Beam rather than Hydro Cannon, but either way, it doesn't really matter. We get that Fury Cutter farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I can see a Goodra in the lead. So, this is actually not a bad matchup for me. Typically going to resist the charge moves unless they're running Draco Meteor or Sludge Wave. Because, of course, Aqua Tail, Thunder Punch, and even if they're on, like, Grass Knot, all going to be resisted here. So, sorry, Power Whip, not Grass Knot. But either way, we're going to farm up to back-to-back Aura Spheres. Aura Sphere, number one, no shielded. Second one does grab a shield. And we put them into Fury Cutter farm down range. Unfortunately, they are going to reach a charge move before I can fully farm them down, and we have already seen both Aqua Tail and Thunder Punch, so I will be shielding. I will respect the Thunder Punch damage, and now the opponent swaps into a Gastrodon, so this is not too bad for me. This is definitely where I want to see it for this team, now that Decidueye has gone down, but unfortunately, these Fury Cutters, they're not adding up that much. They are non-stab, and Dark Pulse is going to do decent damage here, but it won't really put them into farm down range, unfortunately, so Dark Pulse is going to get them fairly low. I do swap out now into my Typhlosion. But yeah, I'm going to have to shield this. The opponent does bait with a Body Slam there. I couldn't remember how much energy they had on the Goodra, so I do panic. I fire off that Fire Punch. Potentially could have overfarmed slightly more than that. Maybe even committed to a full farm down. But we are going to throw very late. We go for Fire Punch. We get the KO. And their final Pokemon is a Corviknight. So for some reason, I swap out. Don't really understand why I did that. But either way, we've got the Wild Charge loaded. But Corviknight, super bulky, able to tank a non-stab Wild Charge. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. And just for anyone wondering, Fire Punch would have done less damage there, unfortunately, so that is why I'm going for Wild Charge. But either way, into the next battle, we're going to see a Decidueye, Decidueye, we're running Decidueye into a Dedenne, that's what I meant to say, in the lead. We are going to shield as they have overfarmed massively. The opponent is going to full send a Play Rough, so that's fine with me. Then looks like a CMP tie, which we win, and of course, this is just going to be a Parabolic Charge from Dedenne, which we do resist, so I'm happy to let this go through. They are going to stay in with Dedenne. They are going to eventually swap out. I'm now boosted, however, so I'm going to go for the Aura Sphere. Aura Sphere does big damage. I probably should have banked a charge move there. But that's okay. I'm going to no-shield the first move as they fire off the Air Cutter. And unfortunately, because I swapped out slightly too late there, we don't actually get the full farm down. And I didn't bank the move on the Decidueye either. So maybe not the best either side. Either I should have just overfarmed slightly more than that, or I should have just swapped out straight away. But either way, they're going to swap, make a catch onto Gastrodon. Very nice play. But they are, of course, now switch locked. So I can come in, fire off the Trailblaze. Trailblaze gets the one shot there. And here I had the Aura Sphere loaded. I don't know why I didn't throw it there. I guess expecting to reach a Trailblaze, but we don't get there in time. We do, however, have a Fire Punch loaded. Fire Punch does decent damage, but it does not get the KO there. And of course, they're now about to boost up their defense. We've got resisted non-stab Fury Cutters, but we just barely get that farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. You can see a Talonflame in the lead. So, of course, not a good matchup for me. Going to be swapping into Samurott, and unfortunately met with a Razor Leaf Shadow Victory Bell. So, in the previous video, I did see the reverse of this Shadow Victory Bell with Razor Leaf in the lead, and then double Incinerate users in the back. Is this going to be double Razor Leaf users in the back? I'm not so sure. But either way, we're going to come in with the Decidueye. If they've got Sludge Bomb, then fair play. Why can't I talk today? But they actually go for Leaf Tornado. So I'm going to bank the energy, swap into Typhlosion, and they've actually got a Blastoise in the back. So not the worst thing ever. Of course, we've got Wild Charge for coverage. I'm going to shield the first charge move, and now I'm full sending that Wild Charge. Wild Charge is going to grab the final shield, but we reach a second Wild Charge already. Wild Charge number 2 just barely doesn't get the KO, and we also miss out on that Ember Farm down, meaning they reach a last second charge move. At this point, we do get the Ember Farm down. And at this point, I was also thinking Victory Bell was lower than it was. I thought they were in one Ember Farm down range. I make a huge mistake there. Should have just banked the energy. But of course, now we can go for Aura Sphere. You can see second one is not going to get the KO, so I didn't bother throwing. The opponent going to go and full send a Brave Bird just because they can. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But very disappointed that I just couldn't remember how much HP that Victory Bell had. But either way, into the next battle. GG's to that trainer. We're going to see a Lapras in the lead. So of course, we're taking super effective damage from the Psy Waves. I'm going to fire off an Aura Sphere, grab that shield advantage, then swap into Samurott. Now, they have farmed up a ton of energy, so I am going to shield respect a Skull Bash, but they do bait with a Sparkling Aria. However, this time, not coming in with a Shadow Razor Leaf Victory Bell, much more manageable as they come in with a Venusaur, and I'm actually able to reach a second Icy Wind, winning CMP. And Icy Wind, actually, they're just going to fully sacrifice the Venusaur, come in with a Morpeko, and this is just going to be a Psychic Fang, so I'm going to no-shield this. We can tank that. Possibly could have just swapped out there. Oh, sorry, could have thrown a charge move, but either way, we're actually going to swap into the Decidueye, fire off that Aura Sphere straight away. Aura Sphere is going to be no-shielded, but now, unfortunately, they can shield once and then commit to a full Psywave farm down, so smart play on the opponent's end. And of course, a loaded Lapras is quite scary for me. Samurott going to go down to any charge move at this range, and a Sparkling Aria is going to do quite a lot of damage into Typhlosion, but I'm going to no-shield this, as I recognize Psywaves are double assisted on the Samurott. Doesn't matter that they've got a ton of energy. They can fire off a second Sparkling Aria, but now we can fire off the Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse won't quite get the KO, but it should put them into Fury Cutter farm down range, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see Decidueye into Azumarill. So, not a bad matchup for me in the one-shield scenario. This is quite a dominant matchup for us, as we will reach 3 Trailblazers, come out triple boosted, and of course have taken very minimal damage from the bubbles. But we're going to shield the first charge move here. If the opponent wants to, of course, they can win the zero shield scenario, but we are now going to overfarm here, farming up to back-to-back Trailblazers. They now have the energy for a second Ice Beam, but if they shield here, they're going to have to double shield if they want to keep their Azu alive. So I'm going to go for Trailblaze number 2. Trailblaze gets the KO there. We're triple boosted. We're now going to swap into Samurott, and we bait out a Ferrothorn. So at this point, things are looking fairly good for me. I can fire off the Icy Wind. However, unfortunately, if they do overfarm considerably, then I might not be able to come in with Typhlosion and get a huge energy advantage. So either way, we're going to farm up to back-to-back Icy Winds, and the opponent has farmed up a ton of energy, farming up to 100. They're going to go for the Power Whip. It gets the KO. We can come in with Typhlosion. Remember, they are double debuff, so even if it's a Thunder, it's not going to do much damage here. Then I swap back into the Skeledirge, and I'm definitely going to shield. The opponent is going to go ahead and full send a Shadow Ball, which is actually great for me because now I'm full sending a Wild Charge. Wild Charge going to debuff my defense there, and unfortunately, I'm forced to swap out, catch the next charge move, but I believe I am one away from the next Fire Punch, so I can go straight for it, as of course, the opponent is stuck in the Incinerate animation. Fire Punch gets the KO from that range, and Ember not dealing the most damage, but we do get the farm down when it's double super effective up against the Ferrothorn, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. You can see a Shadow Dusknoir in the lead. So, not an ideal matchup for me, but I kind of need to stay in because Typhlosion is really going to struggle up against the Astonish damage from the Dusknoir. We're going to go for a Trailblaze here. Trailblaze might grab a shield from the opponent. It does actually grab a shield. And here, instead of throwing a charge move, instead, I'm going to swap out, make the catch there, catching a resisted Shadow Punch onto my Samurott before the opponent, unfortunately, hard punishes me with an Azumarill. But we can take this opportunity to debuff their attack, possibly by several stages if they do overfarm, which they do. I mean, I guess they do have to full send a play rough here. But anyways, Icy Wind is going to double debuff them, and they do throw straight away. So at this point, play rough gets the KO there. However, unfortunately, even though I'm taking very minimal damage here, of course, we are very low, so we're not going to be able to do much damage, and the opponent comes in with a Corviknight. So here, I'm going to go straight for an Aura Sphere. Unfortunately, we do not grab a shield. What I kind of needed to do there is just stay in and fire off a second Aura Sphere. I needed to grab the final shield, because now the opponent can just shield up the Fire Punch, and you can see we don't even get to a second Fire Punch. And at this point, it's going to be game over. There's nothing I can do. Shadow Punch gets the KO there, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG up on there, into the next battle. You can see Greninja in the lead. So an okay matchup for me, of course. Psycho Cuts are going to be double resisted, unfortunately. But the opponent's going to swap out into a Shadow Jumpluff. So the opponent is going to go and full send in Acrobatics. Likely on Acrobatics and Edgeable this season, as of course, Aerial Ace did get nerfed. We're going to go for a Fire Punch, grabbing a shield. And now we can win CMP with a second Fire Punch. Fire Punch does grab that final shield from the opponent. So this one, I'm also going to double shield. I recognize if they come back in with Greninja, I actually don't care. I'm not going to swap out. They're trying to bait back my Decidueye back out. So instead, we're going to stay in. I'm going to go straight for Wild Charge, get that one shot. And now they come in with a Steel Wing Corviknight. So that is fine with me. Maybe I should have just thrown the Wild Charge there. Don't really know why I didn't. But either way, we come in with our Samurott. They fire off an Iron Head, which is very interesting. Like, what is even going on at this point? We're going to go for an Icy Wind here, and now we've debuffed their attack. We can just go straight for a Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse will be getting the KO, and even if they do Fairy Wind farm me down, we've got the Fire Punch loaded anyways, but actually, they're not able to do so. We can go straight for an Icy Wind. Double super effective. It takes out the Shadow Jumpluff, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG up on there, into the next battle. You can see a Shadow Kanto Ninetales in the lead. So, of course, not a great lead matchup for me. Going to be safe swapping into my Samurott and baiting out a Unova Stunfisk. So, good to see it here, as we do have Icy Wind for super effective damage. I debuff their attack, which means they will not be able to take me out with a single discharge. So the first one gets me very low, but we hang on, and I can reach the Icy Wind. Icy Wind is going to grab the first shield from the opponent, and unfortunately, still doesn't really put them into Psycho Cut farm down range, because Psycho Cut just doesn't do much damage, but they are double debuffed. They're also going for Discharge rather than Mud Bomb, which is interesting. Mud Bomb is going to do more damage in the situation, but anyways, they swap into a Dugong. I'm going straight for Aura Sphere. Aura Sphere is going to be no-shielded. It does big damage, and now we swap into Typhlosion. I'm going to shield. They full send a Drill Run as well, which is very nice for me. I'm going to farm up to back-to-back Fire Punches here before throwing a charge move. Fire Punch, going to get the KO. They're going to come back in with the Stunfisk, and honestly, I couldn't remember how much energy they had. Potentially, could have committed to a full farm down there. Maybe should have done so. But now I'm going to swap Cash the charge move onto my Decidueye. Of course, well, actually, they go for a Psyshock there. I was going to say, Weather Ball is going to get the KO. We farm up to back-to-back Wild Charges. I'm confident that Wild Charge will get the KO. But it doesn't. And now throwing the Wild Charge, I've debuffed my defense, meaning a Weather Ball will get the KO from this range, and we cannot get that farm down. So unfortunately, Weather Ball takes out my Typhlosion, and I do end up losing that game. I felt like I should have won that, but misplays in the end game ends up costing me. But GG's to that opponent there. Into the next battle, you can see Umbreon in the lead, so a good lead matchup for me. Of course, they are going to double resist the Psycho Cut damage, but it's not the worst thing ever. Aura Sphere, you're going to see, does half their HP, which is very nice. Then swap into a Talonflame. I'm going to respond straight away and going straight for a Wild Charge. I'm not messing around. Wild Charge is not respected. The opponent expecting a bait there. Wild Charge gets the full-on one-shot. They're going to come back in straight away with the Umbreon, fire off the Dark Pulse, meaning they're probably not on foul play. Which means, of course, they're going to be quite slow to get to the charge moves here. I can just go straight for an Aura Sphere. We've seen already, Aura Sphere going to do about 50% of their HP, and they've got a Lantern in the back. There's nothing they can do, and so they just concede the match. So, GG's top on there into the next battle. Can see a Gastrodon in the lead, so a great lead matchup for me. Opponent's going to say swap into a Charizard, but they're on Ember. So, Ember, I don't know if that necessarily helps me in this matchup. Of course, they're going to be slightly faster to the charge moves, but they are going to get the boost straight away. We're going to go straight for Wild Charge. Wild Charge, going to be shielded. And at this point, I can probably shield and grab both shields from the opponent, but they get a second boost, and now Charizard is about to get out of hand. Honestly, I don't know if there's a lot we can do here. I do allow them to fully farm me down. We can come in with the Samurott, and I am going to no-shield this first charge move. Air Cutter just does so much damage, and they can reach another one already. This thing is just getting well out of hand. I shield the Air Cutter. They swap back into Gastrodon, however, and at this point, I'm not even going to allow them to reach a Body Slam. Maybe I should have just over-farmed here, because now I was expecting to win CMP up against Charizard, but that is not the case. Unfortunately, we do not win CMP, and as a result, Air Cutter gets the KO there. I'm going to throw the Icy Wind just because I want to see what they had in the back. Could we have won this game? They're going to have a Shadow Murkrow, so of course Pex would have absolutely obliterated Decidueye anyways, but maybe I would have reached an Icy Wind on the Samurott. Kind of hard to tell, but either way, GG's to that trainer into the final battle of this video. We're going to see another Dedenne in the lead, so this time, I'm going to fire off the Trailblaze just before they do reach a Play Rough, and they do no shield. At this point, I'm still going to shield anyways. The opponent is going to go ahead and full send a Play Rough before swapping into a Clodsire. Now, since I'm already boosted, I'm going to fire off a second Trailblaze here. Grab a shield with the Trailblaze, which is quite interesting. Then swap into Samurott. This is just a Stone Edge, so I can afford to no-shield this. Earthquake would have put us into farm down range very comfortably, but luckily for me, they do just go for a Stone Edge. We can go for an Icy Wind, and they are going to fire off a second Stone Edge straight away. So at this point, gonna no-shield Stone Edge, gets the KO from that range. But we can come in with the Typhlosion, and I will resist the Poison Sting damage due to the Ghost typing. They swap into Shadow Torterra, and I am trying to throw it on good timing here, but that does allow them to get huge damage off with the Mud Slaps. We can now come back in with the Decidueye. Excuse me, and I should resist everything. However, I will shield anyways, just in case it was a Frenzy Plant. Of course, in hindsight, it was pretty obvious they were going to go for a Sand Tomb, but we go for Aura Sphere. We get the KO, and if we did no shield there, they could probably farm me down at this point. So we're going to go for a Trailblaze once again. Trailblaze, going to be no shielded, and the opponent actually throws a charge move, which is huge for me. This will allow me to come in, get a slight energy advantage. We can go straight for the Fire Punch. Fire Punch from this range takes out the Dedenne, and I can go for an Ember farm down, just barely taking out the Clodsire, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.